If you've always been upset that none of your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle party wagons had enough articulation, well, I think you're in luck. This is the new Party Wallop by Hasbro, and it just so happens to be the 40th anniversary of both TMNT and Transformers, so what better time? As you can see on the side, it comes with weapons and bandanas for all four brothers, and oh yeah, it transforms into a regular party wagon. Just a little minor detail. Here's a quick look at the figure form for all four brothers, Donatello, Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Raphael. But let's break it out of the box and see what we're working with. And here's everything you get straight out of the package. It starts you off in robot form, so you could just keep it that way forever if you wanted to, but make sure you don't forget the most important part of this package, the instructions. I will say this is one you could probably figure out without them, but they were nice to have for me, cause I don't think I've held a real Transformer since the 80s. And no, those road-ready TMNT don't count. Here's a closer look at all the things you should find inside the package. We have this front of the party wagon that has a little handle you can pull down on the back. Then just a quick spoiler alert, satellite dish for the top, and an itty bitty pizza / TMNT logo for the front of the grill. It does not fit on there pizza side out, so this is really your only option up here. It clips in pretty easily, just make sure it's straight. Here are those 4 interchangeable masks. Each one is kind of just like a Lego piece. It has that spot for a peg on the top of the head. And then here's that selection of standard turtle weapons. Before we do any actual transforming, I just wanted to take a look at the articulation of the figure itself. Again, I don't own any other Transformers, so I was really surprised what you could do with this thing. You can move just about anything you would on a normal figure, all the arms at the elbow, the wrists, the shoulders. The feet are a bit clunky, so I don't know how dynamic of a pose you could get down here, but you can move out at the hips, back at the knees, front and back. You can even surprisingly get close to a full splits. I'm sure you could come up with some creative scenes for this thing if you wanted to put some effort into it. There doesn't appear to be any sort of real neck, but the head does move all the way around. And then, even though it's not in van form yet, those wheels do roll. So there's a little bit of an added articulation bonus. If you don't like the exposed shell and belt look on the front, you can snap the front of the party wagon on there. It clips on really easily. The plastic for the figure overall seems sturdy enough, but I think if you got it in the wrong position, you could snap a brace here or there. So just be careful not to force anything. Changing out the bandana pieces turned out to be really simple. Of course, it comes with the no mask look. Here it is for Donatello. Purple looking good. Here's the Michelangelo. The orange blends in a little bit. Leonardo stands out nicely. And then the red one, of course, you could use to represent Raphael, or if you want just a non-descriptive Mirage Turtle. Next, we'll take a quick look at those weapons. Donnie's bow actually folds up so you can store it underneath the vehicle. And after you unfold it, you can slide it in either of the hands. The middle of the bow is too thick to go through, so it kind of limits your options. You can get it in a two-handed pose, but it stays a little bit bent. At least that was my experience. The 2 katanas slide in with ease. I feel like they could stand to be a little bit bigger, but I think it works okay. You can get that crossed sword look in the front of the figure if you want to, but it does block the face a little bit. The size probably gave me the most trouble. It was a little hard to get him pushed all the way down in there, but it does work. It worked really easy from underneath, so you could change up the look a little bit that way if you want to. And I wasn't sure if it would work, but you can get 1 pair of chucks between the 2 hands if you really want to on Mikey, but it's pretty much stretched to its limits. Then there is one more way you can personalize the look. Take off this front of the wagon, and you can actually flip up this belt piece which reveals kind of a wheel underneath. It starts off blank, but you can cycle between initials for all 4 brothers, and the colors of the letters do match their bandanas. Of course, if you don't want either of them, you can just stick with the standard gray or put the plate back on the front. Before we do any real transforming, we do have to talk about this roof piece on the back. It does give you quite a bit of options as how you want it to look. You can have it going all the way up and it kind of looks more like a shell, or you could have it hanging down and it looks more like a long cape. From the side it looks just a little bit funky because of that gap back there, but I'm not sure there's really anything they could have done about that. Getting it back into that original backpack position is a little bit tricky, so you might have to play around with that just a little bit as well. One more mode I guess you could do is this super high-tech built-in umbrella shell. What robot doesn't need a little extra water protection, am I right? You can add that satellite dish there up top, and there we go, all ready for battle. You can add the spoiler on the back in this mode as well. It kind of makes it look less like a shell, but you can just leave it back there if you want to. It was really easy to slide on and off. One thing that is super cool about this thing is that you can house all of the extra accessories that you're not using on the toy itself. As you can see, you can put the bandana pieces underneath here. There's also a little notch in there for the folded up bow. It's kind of a small space, so it was a little bit tricky to get in there, but not too bad. Underneath these massive shoulder pads is where you can hide the nunchucks. These went in easily, just be careful with that chain so it doesn't stick out too much. And then move back the arms a little bit and you'll see a little bitty notch for those size. They go in there easy enough, but to be honest, it did take me a couple tries of them falling on the floor. Once you get them in there, they feel pretty secure. The katanas on the back were tricky as well, and you do have to be careful with the shell placement, because if it's not completely flat back there, it's going to bend those size up pretty good. So just take note of that if you want to store them back there long term. And then we can also put the van front on there, even if you don't want it on the chest. Just flip down this little piece here, and it clips onto either one of the hands. You could have it facing on there whichever way you want, as kind of a shield accessory over there. Just remember to flip that handle back up when you want to put it back on the front of the figure. The next couple minutes is a montage of me going through the transformation. I would say that the instructions are about as clear as they could be without having to use any sort of words. There were a couple symbols that they used telling you to turn the figure backwards or forwards, so you'll just have to get used to those. There were a couple pieces that didn't fit quite as easily as I would have liked, so they took a few tries. Again, I was trying to be careful not to force anything because I didn't want to snap any of these plastic pieces, so there might be some times you see things not quite lining up. I just didn't want to push my luck. You can move these little red lights on the side to make it even more realistic, put that satellite dish on top whenever you want. If I had to guess, a more seasoned Transformers collector could probably do this transformation no problem without the instructions. Unlike some of those road-ready mutation figures from back in the day in the TMNT line, I will say all of the moves seemed pretty logical. After doing it once with the instructions, I'm pretty sure I could figure it out on my own without them. But just to be safe, you know I'm not throwing those things away. The last few pieces were probably the hardest to line up, probably just because I did some things a little bit off on the inside, but all in all, even with me filming every single step, I would say this was a pretty quick transformation. When you do get to this point, there are a few stray weapon accessories, so if you flip it underneath, there are notches for you to hide those as well. This storage works okay, but the katanas really want to pop out. And here's the full turnaround in that party wagon mode. With the exception of the back of the van looking like a character from Cars, I think this turned out really great. All the wheels move with these, so you could definitely get a lot of play factor out of this one as well. Pretty cool. For size comparisons, it's quite a bit bigger than this 132 scale Jada Toys Party Wagon. And other than a few obvious hinges here and there, I think they look really similar in detail. I will say the bright yellow matches the Hot Wheels a little bit more closely, but obviously it's way bigger than that one too. On the opposite end of the spectrum, it is way smaller than the original Party Wagon by Playmates, so hopefully that gives you a good idea how this can fit into your collection. In the end, I think this is a super fun toy and it is definitely unique. The transformation was easy, even for me, and I was honestly really surprised with how much articulation it had. Accessory storage is another bonus, and all in all, this is just a solid buy. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.